All right, we're going to get started, even though there's some other people still trying to get here. The parking issues, you can guess, when you invite everybody from Post who wants to learn about FERS to come to Weber Theater this morning, 8 o'clock. So I appreciate you making the time to get through the gate and then finding a place to park and be here for this. So there'll be people still coming in as we go through this briefing. I wished I could stay because I'm getting near retirement. Hey, Nick Kia, I say this every year and no one ever believes me that I'm going to retire. So that's what it is. But we got a great speaker this morning. I've been talking to her to find out something about her. And I just realized that I have a son that's older than she is. So that sort of tells you I won't tell you how old she is, but she's younger than my son, and he's 42. All right. She was prior enlisted. She's from Pennsylvania. She joined the Army in Alabama. It's interesting. How many remember what a lineman is? All these old dogs that were in the service know what a lineman is. She was a wire dog. That's what she did. Her first 5 years, she was a lineman, and then decided this is not what I want to do in life: climbing poles and stringing wire. So she went administrative, and that's where she's been her entire career. When she got out in the Army and became an HR specialist. So it's Nakia Algu. Did I do that correctly? All right. She has 3 children, and youngest being 10, oldest being 21. I'm trying to remember some of the things about her. She's lived in Hawaii, Pennsylvania, Tulong and Junction City. For those who know where Junction City is, right outside of Fort Riley. Let's see. What did I miss, Nikia? That's close enough. She is an expert in this field. And we've taped this, so we'll have this for perpetuity, so we can... that's a big word, I know, Mike Cowden, for you to understand that word. Go look it up. So we'll have the film if you need to use it for some kind of a ODP or something when you get back to your units. I know we've got Cadet Command here, and I saw a couple of Recruiting Command individuals and HRC individuals. Do we have... Listen to who are down here. Do we have anybody else from Garrison? Anybody from Garrison show? Good, super. All right, good. Any other unit that I didn't name that's here this morning? Who? The filmmakers. Somebody put some tape over his mouth. All right. Okay. Anybody else that we may have missed? Oh, Medac's here. Good. Not a lot of you left in Medac. That's what Colonel Bass tells me. You guys keep leaving and going other places. Now, what I asked Nakia this morning was about all the rhetoric we're reading from OPM right now about the retirement system. Nothing's set in concrete. So sort of stay away from the future because it doesn't really apply to us right now. I mean, they're talking about instead of top 3 to be the top 5 and that kind of crap. You know, if you've been around as long as I have, you'll know they talk about this every 4 or 5 years. As soon as administration changes, they bring it up again. And it's usually every Republican that brings it up. You know, let's see what we can do to the federal workforce. Not saying I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. It just seems to occur that way. So don't focus on the OPM and what they're doing right now and how we'll look like 5, 10 years from now. She's got a lot of information to share with you this morning. Ask her questions. If it's specific, all right, you may want to wait until a break time or whatever and then ask her, or we'll work those things out, because you probably each one could spend 15, 30 minutes asking your questions of Nakia today. But she is the expert, and she says she's happy to answer any questions that you may have about your future. So, and again, I do maybe look at retiring next year, but I'm not sure. But we'll see about that. Well, I'll have to review her video because I've got to go to a 3-star meeting that decided he wanted to come this week. As you well know, when a general says he wants to come, I can't tell him, well, sir, I'm sorry, we got a FERS thing. You can't come. Well, that didn't go over very well. So he's here today. Nakia, I've talked enough. It's your turn. All right? Nakia Algu.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to stand on the stage because you guys will have a better chance of seeing me since I'm so short. Thank you for that introduction. First of all, I want to say thank you guys for having me here because retirement is a very important thing, and you guys do your jobs, but when it's time to retire, you do want to definitely know what's going to happen next, or what's in store for you, especially how much money you're going to get. I have a lot of information to give out today, and I don't like wasting people's time, so I just want to give you a quick synopsis of what we're going to go through. They've got some microphones here, 2 of them in the audience, and then I'll kind of let you guys know when the floor will be open for questions. There may be some questions in between the time frames, then, did it just echo? Okay, I'll try not to do that. During the process, if you guys have any questions, there may be some areas that's going to be discussed later on. So I want to make sure we hold those questions off. Since I have 122 slides today, I'd like to try and get to a certain point before lunch. We're going to take breaks every hour, and lunchtime is going to be from 11 to 12. So I'll be trying to track time to make sure we don't miss that. Has anyone ever called the Army Benefit Center before? Okay, good deal. If you have any questions that are specific or personal in nature, we don't want to share that with the whole room. So if you want to call a retirement counselor, please do so, and they'll be ready to answer your questions in your personal settings. So as far as the slides, first I'm going to do an introduction of the Army Benefit Center, and then I'm going to go into retirement planning, the FERS retirement system, so it can give you an idea of why you are FERS, civilian deposits and redeposits, military service, the different types of retirements, because there's different types, retirement forms, sick leave, the high 3, because it's still the high 3 right now, and until guidance is put out, until they make it policy, then it'll change. But as far as right now, they've been talking about it for many, many years, and nothing has changed. So as we know right now, your retirements will still be calculated as the high 3. Mine might be calculated as the high 5 later on, but for now, it's still the high 3 for you all. Let's see. Survivor elections, beneficiary forms, and then toward the after lunch, we're going to talk about health insurance, life insurance. We're going to touch on TSP, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay? So I do have a couple of questions. How many people in this room right now is here for the CSR's retirement briefing? Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure, because that's tomorrow. How many people are 10 years out from retirement? 10 years? 10. 5 years. Okay. 2 years? Okay. 1 year. 1 month? The end of this month. No, okay. All right, so that's good. That's good to know. A lot of this information is going to be able to touch each and every one of you for the planning process. Has anyone in this room ever had non-appropriated funds service, NAF time? Okay, that's good to know. Are you still maybe in that NAF retirement system? Not sure. All right, we'll talk about that a little bit. Do we have any law enforcement officers, firefighters, air traffic controllers? Oh, thank goodness. Okay, that's a whole separate briefing, thank goodness. Anybody had a break-in service? Okay. Temporary service, like early on in your career? Okay. Military service? Okay. Retired military. All right. Anyone still serving? Okay. All right. We're going to talk briefly about that as well. Any wage grade employees in the room? Okay. All right. So I know my audience. That's awesome. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, put a lot of information out, but I think you guys will be pretty happy with everything that you hear so far. I would ask, can everybody see me? But okay, there we go. Okay, so my initial part is to talk about the ABC. I have to talk about my organization. I enjoy working there. When we talk to each person on the phone or touch their retirement actions, we have to put the best quality forward because we are experts in what we do so that you can be experts in what you do and not have to worry about this part. So any questions you have, please do call us. So we do have services that we provide. We've got the health benefit system, Federal Employee Health Benefit Program, Federal Employee Life Insurance Program, TSP, which we don't actually manage TSP. However, we do help you get enrolled in those plans. So if you call an ABC counselor, they will not have any access to your TSP information. You've got to call the TSP number for that. The retirement systems, FERS, CSRS, and there's some new retirement systems in place now, so we'll go over those briefly. And of course, survivor benefits. Has anyone ever used EBIS? All right, so EBIS is pretty cool. You can get on there. You have to have a CAC-enabled computer, but you can process elections. It's available 24 hours a day. This is for people who don't necessarily want to give us a call. You can actually go in and calculate an estimate. So although we are only giving out estimates every 3 years, the estimate you receive from us, you can actually go into EBIS and switch the numbers around, you know, as far as like the date that you want to retire and get another estimate. So you can kind of project it that way if you wanted multiple dates so that you can decide. Okay. All right. Now, as far as our toll-free number, that's a very important number to hold on to because if you're not necessarily in a retirement process right now, you might have benefit-related questions. So you definitely want to give us a call. The counselors who answer the phone are also the counselors who will process your retirements, your estimates, your military deposits, your deposits and redeposits for civilian time. So very knowledgeable staff there. The sign there says Monday through Friday. We've just switched up, and now it is Monday through Thursday. So not a lot of time for people to be able to give us a call during the week, but keep in mind right now, and we've just started doing it the month of March, we're able to go into it for April, May, until June. It may change after June, but if it does not, we'll definitely let you all know. Okay. And that's just so that we can catch up on all of our retirements, our timeliness, also our training. We try and do them on Fridays. If possible, we try to get them done on that day. All right, so that's 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time. Okay. Now, I know you guys can't see this. I'm not sure if everyone printed the slides or not, but basically this is a snapshot of the ABC homepage. And what's pretty interesting here is that we've got something called EBATS. And that EBATS system, if you were to click on it, you'd be able to see any action that you send to the Army Benefit Center. So if you submitted an application for retirement, then you can see that status of that application, the counselor assigned to it. Just kind of gives you guys an insight on what we're doing there at the agency. And of course, EBIS, that's how you get logged into EBIS. Now, right here in the middle, we've got, okay, that's right down there. They moved it down on me. That is where you can go in and listen to a DCS. So pretty much the same slides, same information. You'll get to type questions in on the side from the comfort of your desk or home or wherever you want to listen in at. So if anyone wasn't able to make today's session, then they can go to that area there, which you can't see the link, but all they have to do is just look up the dates for the next time frame. Also, we are working on some YouTube videos so that this will be out there for everyone so that you don't have to wait for another 10 years for someone to come out. Although it's always nice to have someone face to face. Okay? And this is just an idea of the EBAT system that I was talking about. That's how it looks. Okay, so whenever we receive retirements, we kind of have like a report card. You know how competition is. We compete with like the Navy, Air Force, and their timeliness. So we like to make sure that our Army employee retirements are processed in a timely manner and sent forward, because there's a couple different places. It's got to go to DFAS, it's got to then go to OPM. So we make sure that we can try and get them processed in a timely manner. Now, if you send your retirement to us, and it's either the day of or the day after the retirement date, we're still going to get it processed. We're going to make sure that we get it all processed for you. Okay? So some of the challenges that we have are the late retirements. We still process them, but we want to get you in that timeline to where you can get paid for your first retirement check within 6 to 8 weeks after retirement, because that's the timeline. So 6 to 8 weeks, and I'll go over that again. When we say unhealthy retirement package based on that BAL, that's because OPM requires the retirement package be in a certain format. They like wet signatures, so if we still ask you to mail it, it's because we've got to send it to OPM that way. Now, there are times when we can get away with like sending it as a copy, but preferably we'd rather that you mail it. Okay. As soon as you mail it into our agency, you will receive an email confirmation let you know that it was received by our mail and file room. Okay. Military deposits processed incorrectly. So when I first started with ABC, the guidance to process military deposits was one way. So once we got that under control and we get them knocked out, boom, 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 and this is agency-wide, then the guidance changed. Certain things that they don't accept anymore, like DART forms. That's just a list of all of your points in the military. So those are things that when we process estimates for you, we get to check them. So we like when you, within 5 years of retirement, request an estimate through ABC so that we can make sure that all your service is credible. Because there's things that are not necessarily credible for retirement purposes that may be credible for leave. So you might see a difference there. And Federal Erroneous Retirement Coverage Corrections Act, or FERCA. And that's a bad word. We like to say FERCA because if you are a FERCA case, that basically means that early on in your career, you were placed in the wrong retirement system. And so it's necessary for us to make sure that we make everything whole again, make it all right. For example, if a person was in the wrong retirement system and not paying into Social Security, then there's years of Social Security payments that may have to be made. Or if a person was in the wrong retirement system and was paying into Social Security, then of course we have to make sure those adjustments as well. TSP comes into play because FERS employees get the automatic up to 5% matching. So there's a lot of things that we have to look into to make retirement whole again. Okay. So again, we're going to work on our YouTube videos, and that's actually an initiative that's going on right now. So we're going to try and get that out to you guys so that you can watch the retirement seminars in the comfort of your own homes if you need to. Okay. Updates on EBIS, we're working on those things. We want to try and make it more user-friendly. We do get suggestions, and we try to take all of that into account. Phased retirement. Has anyone heard of phased retirement before? Okay, we're going to touch on that very briefly, and the growing population. So although we have tons of people retiring, we get tons of new hires. So we get to stay gainfully employed. If you guys have any questions that I don't answer today, please remember, call the Army Benefits Center because there may be something more specific to your situation. Also, that home page that I showed you guys, that abc.army.mil, at the bottom of that page, there's the ICE comment portion. Okay, so if you guys want to make any suggestions, I don't have any critique forms because our toner was low, but no, I couldn't bring that many anyway. So if you want to make any suggestions about today's seminar, please feel free to go to that ABC homepage and click on the ICE comment about below, I think it's at the end of the page there. Okay. So far, any questions about what I've gone over? Yes, ma'am. That's going to be up to the individual because if you send it regular mail, either way, it may take longer, but we get them regular mail all the time. No need to really pay extra. There is a lot of information in there, so if you want to make sure you've got tracking, then that's up to you. Definitely want to do that. As soon as it arrives at the Army Benefits Center, again, you're going to get an email just letting you know that we have it. You'll also be able to go into EBATS and make sure that it's in there if we update the status or anything. I don't work in the mail-in file room, but I will say some people do track it. They do, yeah. And it goes to the Fort Riley mail-in file room, and then it comes over to the ABC mail-in file room. So to actually expedite it, I don't recommend that because it's still going to come to us maybe about, I say 3 to 4 days. So if you try to do it overnight, it's going to go to Fort Riley, then ABC, and then we'll finally get it in the retirement section. So save a little money there. Do we have another question?
So you're saying the functionality on EDIS or whatever that is right now, where it says to submit application electronically, does not work?
No, not for the purposes of submitting it electronically through ABC, DFAST, and through OPM. No, sir. That functionality, and I'm glad you asked that question, we put that there so that we would be ready when the other agencies are ready to do it electronic. Because I know you guys have heard the term paperless. We're trying to get ready for that. So we've got the electronic. It is a good way to fill out the forms. I will say that. Because one FERS application might be like 15 pages, and that's mostly information. Whereas if you go into EBIS and click e-retirement, then you can go through the database and just put that information in there. It'll ask you, it'll prompt certain questions like, do you need to update your beneficiary forms? And if you say yes, it'll pull up the forms and all that information for you to start entering in. Once you're done and hit submit, it actually is going to take you to PDF versions of your retirement packet. So you will have to still print it out and sign the forms before mailing it in. Thank you for asking that question. Okay. Yes, sir.
What is the current processing time on retirement packets?
For ABC,
Yes.
we ask that you have the packets in-house either between 90 to 120 days. That's because we want to take time to look at them, make sure everything is there. But also, it's going to go from our agency through DFAS and then to OPM. And we can't actually process a retirement we can't actually process the retirement no sooner than 60 days ahead. But keep in mind, whatever date that you think is a good retirement date, there's a lot of people who think that date is a good date as well. And so we've got retirements in-house for December, for next January. So they're already in line. And first in, first out is how we process them.
Is it better to retire at the end of the month, beginning of the month, or does it matter?
FERS employees The best day to retire is the last day of the month, of any month. The reason for that is our annuities will not start to accrue until the very next day, the beginning of the next month. So we can pick any day. We could go on our birthday. If it's April 15th, then we have to be aware that from the 16th all the way through the end of April, we're not going to incur any retirement check. It's not going to start to accrue or calculate until the beginning of that very next month. Okay? Yes, sir?
So at the time that you process the packets, it goes to DFAS. So when does DFAS actually get the notification that we're getting ready to retire?
That's what your SF50, when it processes, then they'll know. Yeah, they'll be made aware as soon as we send that to them. They'll go ahead and get started on coding. They just can't release your packet to OPM until your retirement date. So midnight of whatever date you choose is actually when you're officially retired.
So then at that time, DFAS will notify Thrift Savings, and then the money will be available from Thrift Savings?
No. I am going to talk about some more of that information a little bit later, and it'll probably come together a lot better. But just to let you know, whenever you retire, it's about 30 days after you retire that you can actually start taking money out of TSP. Because once we're, as active employees, we know that TSP is going to take out our final deductions from that last paycheck and then change our status to retirees. And there's not a lot we can do if we're still at an active status as far as TSP is concerned. So we do have to wait at least 30 days, and they'll let you know that. But they'll get that information electronically from DFAS. So I'm going to go ahead forward because a lot of the questions coming up now are going to be answered later on as well. Okay? All right. All right, planning for retirement. This is the part where most of us are already close enough to retirement that we don't want to hear what to do to plan about it, 25 years ago, but I have to go over that information anyway. So 25 years out before you retire, you want to make sure that any benefits that are available to you that you need, that you go ahead and get enrolled in, maximize your TSP if you can, or make sure you're contributing. Any new employee orientation. So if you know any new employees, if we have any of our children who are maybe starting with federal service, encourage them to call ABC if they're with the Army, to call ABC, to go to the website, and just to check out all the benefits that are available to them. Because there's so many times that I've heard employees say, I wish I'd known this years ago, especially when it comes to any interest that we might pay on deposits or redeposits. Mid-career, 10 to 24 years, make your adjustments, review your TSP to see if there's any changes that you might want to make, both with TSP and any investments that we have outside of TSP. Later career, about 10 years before you retire, go into EBIS and start your own calculations. That information in EBIS is pretty good. It's actually better for people who had straight service, but we are trying to update it so that it'll ask certain questions about temporary time and things like that, so that it can give you the best calculation, the best estimate possible, so you can at least get started in the planning process. Make any adjustments that you need to. 5 years to retirement. Please notify ABC so that we can give you a retirement estimate. That's how you will know whether or not you are able to take health insurance into retirement. If you're able to take your life insurance into retirement. Also, we like to give you just an idea of what your sick leave is going to do toward your retirement. So we always calculate the sick leave at what we see at the time that we process your request, not 2 years out, which you may accumulate. So it's not projected sick leave, it's only the current balance that you have. And then when you retire, of course, when you retire, it's going to take whatever sick leave you have at the time of retirement. Now, these are some pretty beneficial websites. They kind of help you get the ball rolling as far as planning for retirement. You got the ballpark calculator that definitely gives you a good estimate, especially with taxes as well. OPM, online services. That second link, that's the link that you're going to actually use after you retire. So you're not going to use the ABC website, you're not going to use EBIS, you're not even going to use DFAS for your civilian retirement. You're going to use that online services at opm.gov. That's where you're going to make any changes. You're going to view your annuity statements. You're going to print off your 1099s for tax purposes. And I'll go over that again before I wrap everything up. Okay? And then, of course, the abc.army.mil website. There's a lot of information there. So if you've never been there, definitely take a look just to see some of the things that are available to you. All right, so why am I FERS? Basically, and this should pertain to all of us, if there's any red flags, then we know we probably need to contact ABC. New employees first hired in the covered position January 1st of 1987, but before January 1st of 2013, and we contribute 0.8% toward our retirement system, only 0.8%. We can't change that. The only time that adjusts is when our salary adjusts. So what they did was they came out with a new retirement system. So they did like an interim period where they were in the process of coming up with a new retirement system. So it is the FERS Revised Annuity Employees, or FERS-RE is what we call it. And so employees hired between January 1st of 2013 and before January 1st of 2014 pay more from their salary. So they pay a 3.1% of their salary toward the retirement system. And once that little grace period was up, anyone hired January 1st, on or after January 1st of 2014, became FERS-FRE. FERS Further Revised Annuity Employees. They contribute 4.4% of their retirement toward their FERS, of their salary toward their FERS retirement. So basically, employees are paying more toward their retirement and the agency is paying less. Ultimately, they're going to end up with the same calculations that we have. So it's not like their retirement's going to be more. It's going to be the same. It's just that they have to actually pay out more. We contribute to Social Security. New employees hired on automatically are placed into TSP at 3%. So when we first hired on, we didn't automatically get enrolled in TSP. We had to actually make an election ourselves. A lot of people said that had I known that TSP was out there early on, I would have started earlier. So, of course, what did they do? They made it mandatory. But employees can go in and waive that. Okay? And now they actually use the L fund. So new employees coming on board, they're not the G fund like we were. They go into the life cycle fund. And so depending on how far they are toward retirement will determine which fund that they're in and how their money will be handled. More aggressive, less aggressive. Now this year, the limit is $18,500 to contribute toward TSP. Okay. And we all know that it's beneficial for us to go at least 5% so we can maximize the agency matching, right? Why not? I mean, it's money that they're putting on the table for us. So definitely would hope everyone here is doing at least 5% if possible. Okay? So whether you are contributing or not, you're going to get 1% toward your TS-free from the agency. They're going to pay 1% for you. Okay, that's automatic. Then the first 3% is dollar for dollar, and the next 2% is 50 cents on the dollar. So that's how it comes up with the 5%. So employees who were maybe interim, CSRS interim for a period of time, does anyone remember seeing on any of their SF50 actions CSRS interim? Like early on? Okay. Some people came on board and they were placed in interim because they were hired in the time frame where they were maybe changing from CSRS to FERS retirement systems. So those employees were hired on or after January 1st of '84. They did contribute 1.3%. They also paid into Social Security, so both CSRS and Social Security. And then if they didn't have a component of at least 5 years, then they were automatically placed in the FERS. So they looked at each employee January 1st of 1987, and if they were not automatically, or excuse me, if they weren't vested or didn't have 5 years in the retirement system CSRS, then they were automatically placed in the FERS. Okay. And in order to determine whether you had a FERS component or not, you know, you had some CSRS service, you might have had some service called FICA, that's when you paid only in Social Security, and just the combination of that time is what determines whether or not a person had a component. But I don't think that's any of us in here. But if it sounds like something that may have been your situation, definitely want to look into that. Our retirement is based on 3 tiers. And you see that triangle at the top, that's FERS. So that lets us know that we're not going to get a whole lot from our FERS retirement system. Which is why TSP being the largest part means that we have to contribute more toward our TSP in order to have that retirement that we want, that comfortable retirement. Also, there may be a possibility that if you retire at your minimum retirement date and you've got the number of years that are required, and I'll talk about that as well, then you may be entitled to receive a FERS annuity supplement. Okay, so from your minimum retirement age, it stops automatically at age 62, and of course that's the earliest that you can apply for Social Security if you wanted to, but it'll stop automatically. Okay. Now when we talk about SCD for retirement, sometimes it's different from the SCD leave date that we have. The one we see on our SF50, the one that we see on our LES, it can be different. And that's basically because the only time that's creditable for retirement is either time that's based on the guidelines that is deemed creditable, or service that must be paid, either a deposit or a redeposit for. Military service that you did not pay for, not retired, but military service that you didn't pay for, you may get credit for sick leave purposes, but when it comes to retirement purposes, you must pay for it in order for it to be credited towards your FERS retirement. Okay. So there's service for NAF employees that may not be creditable for retirement purposes. That won't adjust your retirement SCD, but there are certain public laws that we have to look at whenever we're dealing with a person who has had NAF service. Military retired or campaign time, if it's not being waived, then it's not calculated towards your FERS. All right. And then non-deduction service on or after January 1st of 1989. So if any of us have service where we paid into only Social Security, January 1st of '89, then that service is not creditable for retirement. So even if it was 5 years, 7 years, it's not creditable. It's only creditable once you are paying into the FERS retirement system. But anything prior to January 1st of '89, you can pay for to make it creditable. Okay. All right. I'm going to go into civilian deposits and redeposits, and then we'll take a break, because I don't want to lose anybody. I know this part is boring. All right, so deposit service is not necessarily covered in a retirement system. That means you were paying only into Social Security during that employment. None of the deductions for retirement was withheld from your salary. So you were paying into Social Security, just not FERS. And if it was before January 1st of '89, then you can pay the deposit to make sure it's creditable for retirement purposes. So rules have changed for Peace Corps and Vista service. So if any of that applies to you, then you may want to look into it because it may be service that you can buy back and make sure it increases your retirement annuity, your length of service, things like that. Okay. So if you were to pay a deposit, it'll be 1.3% of whatever your earnings were and any interest over the years. So the interest accumulates the longer it goes unpaid. And I will show you guys an interest chart. That interest chart is the same for deposits, redeposits, and military service. And as you know, the interest rate varied depending on the year. So you know that that interest rate fluctuated over the years. FERS with the CSRS component, CSRS rules apply. That means that CSRS have to pay 7% plus interest. So if you have a component, like at least 5 years or more, and you're paying back a deposit, then you definitely have to pay with the CSRS rules. But I don't think that applies to anyone in here. Okay? And if it's just straight FERS, then you got that 1.3% and your interest. Okay. So of course, if you paid a deposit, you get credit towards your service computation and your annuity, so the dollar amount of your retirement will increase. If you don't pay the deposit, then no credit at all. And again, deposit service after January 1st of '89, no credit at all. So redeposit. If you work for the federal government as a civilian, covered under retirement system, and then you had a break in service. If you, after that break in service, decided to pull your money from the FERS retirement system, and OPM sent you a little check of whatever that you paid into, and it little check because it's not a whole lot, but that is basically what a redeposit, a refund of the retirement system is, meaning that you'd have to pay a redeposit. You have to put that money back in there in order to make it creditable. And a lot of things that people ask, a lot of questions are, why do we have to pay the interest? I did not know this before. One of the questions, or one of the responses that I received when I first started on was basically, you pay into it whatever interest it would have earned had it not been refunded. So that's why we have to pay so much into it, so that it can be creditable toward our retirement again. So the interest will begin the moment they cut the check. So even if you're not back in federal service, then the interest will start to accrue. So the date they send you the check is how long the interest have been accruing. Okay? Okay. Now, if we pay the redeposit, of course you get credit for everything. If you don't pay the redeposit, you do get credit for your retirement SCD only. But when you see a calculation for your retirement, that means you'll get the length of service credit, but you'll see that time frame deducted from your retirement check. So if it was 10 years, then you'll see you got credit for that 10 years. But when it comes to that money, they'll take 10 years off of that. You won't see the 10 years be added with the computation of your retirement annuity. This is that chart that I was talking about. And as you see, we've got the current interest rate, 2.125%. And there were some time frames back in '85, 11.125%. So you'll see how it's changed over the years. All right, so the same form applies. So if you are interested in paying for a deposit, for deposit service, or repaying service, which is a redeposit, then the form is the SF 3108. We do ask that you fill it out, sign it, and mail it in. The reason we need you to mail it in is because we have been told by OPM that they need to see a wet signature from employees requesting it. This is one of those requests that we still have to send to OPM certified mail. So if you call OPM and we ask you to please mail it in, That is why. It's not to frustrate anybody, but that's how we need to get them. Okay? And so once you pay it all in full, you'll get a letter from OPM as paid in full. And what you'll want to do, because they only send it to you, they won't send it to your agency. Make sure that you have it uploaded into your EOPF. ABC will see it when we process estimates. If you move to another agency, then the next agency is going to receive your electronic personnel file, and they'll also see it there. So you'll want to keep it on file. And of course, on ABC's website, there's more information there as far as how to get started. But give us a call if you have any more detailed questions for us. So if you have already done this process, but have not received your paid in full statement, then this link here, this email to OPM, this is how you can ask questions about service directly to OPM. Either I haven't received my paid in full statement, I have prior service that I believe I paid for. Could you verify? That information is with OPM. So any inquiries that you guys ask us, if you paid it or not, if it's not in your EOPF, then we also have to go through OPM to ask them whether or not you paid it, because that money would be paid to OPM. Okay? So both of those websites are really good to hold on to if you have any questions like that. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a quick break. Okay, let's go ahead and jump back in. A lot of questions. That's good. So has everyone been able to access their EOPF? Whenever we have anything that change in our records, like a general adjust, a promotion, reassignment, we get an email from OPM, but it's for our EOPF, letting us know that a new document has been updated. So what you'll want to do is, if you've never gone in there before, you want to try and get in there. You want to use it if you're a first-time user. Take that email and read through it, because it'll let you know how to set up your user ID and password. That's very important, because I don't know if you guys remember back in the day when we had to make an appointment with like CPAC, and then they would pull out our file and they would watch us like a hawk, because they didn't want us to leave the room with that EOPF or that OPF. Well, now we can actually go through and review it, make sure everything is in there. Okay? So certain things you want to review is your service, your retirement coverage, especially when you first started. If you see your retirement service or your retirement code is a K, that lets you know it was FERS. If your retirement code was 2, number 2, that means FICA. Of course, meaning you paid into Social Security, but not FERS. And that's when those other slides come into play when I talked about deposit. Okay, so you want to check that. Also, you want to check your beneficiary forms, because things change in our life, and we want to make sure that we update those beneficiary forms. And the reason why I'm throwing that out there now, and I'm going to talk about it again later, is because whenever we have to process a death in service case, we look for those beneficiary forms. And if you remarried over the years and didn't update them, then we still pay, or OPM still requires, they said that's a valid document. And so by their guidelines, we pay according to whatever is on that beneficiary form. So if anything has changed, you want to make sure kids have grown up. You may want to adjust for your grandkids or whatever the case is, but please take a look at the beneficiary forms in your EOPF. So I did have a lot of good questions during break. Most of it was what we went over. Some of it was more specific to your situations. And please remember, you can call the ABC counselor, the counselors, and get someone to answer your questions one-on-one. So someone that's there instead of here can still assist you. They might be smarter than I am, so you definitely want to call them. All right, so military service. And this is for people who have served but not necessarily retired, then this is where you want to do your buyback. Now, if you did retire and you decide that you might want to waive your retirement, you can definitely do so. That's an option. But it depends on a lot of factors involved. And so if you have, because keep in mind, it's the number of years and the interest that come along with what you're going to pay. So you're paying for 3% of your military service plus the interest, which accumulates the third year after you start in your federal civilian position. So I'll go over that so it can make more sense. Okay. Title 10, call to service by the president. Title 32, service under the state. Those become very important because there's certain people who might still be serving right now. And if it's service that interrupts your federal civilian position, we call that USERRA. That means that we put rules, well, not us, ABC, but rules have been put in place so that you don't lose your job. That job will still be waiting for you as long as it's within 5 years of your return, so that you can pay the lesser of the two, and a lot of different rules for USERRA, and that's where Title 32 comes into play. The rest of us, that service needs to be Title 10. So we want to make sure that that service is Title 10. And so when we look at your retirement or do an estimate for you, we check all of that. Even if you've retired or if you paid that deposit with different agencies, like if you were with the Navy, you come on board with us, we need to try to make sure everything is right for you when you get ready to go into retirement, so there's no surprises. I like some surprises, but these are not the ones, especially when it comes to me having losing credit or having to pay more than what I expected. Okay. So you must have your DD-214 that shows the character of service or military orders. So if it was something that was maybe Title 32, you want to make sure you've got those orders. And this is the good news. Any service prior to January 1st, 1957 is free. That's it. The rest, everything else has to be bought back. Okay? So based on this is the military retired. Based on I didn't do anything. Based on non-combat disability or length of service, no credit unless the military retirement check is waived and the deposit is paid. And then on this side here, based on combat disability or Chapter 1223, Title 10, must pay to receive credit for eligibility. There are some people who served in the reserves and can get a military reserves retirement and can pay the deposit for their reserve time, or the active reserve time, and use that to receive credit on both the civilian side and the military side. That's like the only time somebody can actually double dip. But for straight active duty military retired, you have to waive it. You can't pay and have it credited on both sides. And the question was asked, what if I want to waive it and pay that military deposit? People do it, but not a whole lot of people do that. If your retirement is pretty nice on the retirement side, basically when you retired and whatever the calculations were, just keep in mind that under FERS, when you take those years and place them under the FERS rules, is 1% times your high 3 average salary. And so there's a possibility that if you're not making a whole lot right now, then your retirement, using that military time, may not be calculated the way you want it to be. So I would recommend that if you were just curious, to go ahead and get an estimate, especially if you're within 5 years of retirement. Get an estimate to show if you paid for the waiver or if you did not, and leave that military retirement out altogether and use just FERS computations. And I will put 3 things in front of me. I will put that estimate showing the military deposit paid, I would use the estimate with it not being paid, and I would look at my military LES to show what my salary is. And sometimes if you combine the civilian time without the military estimate included and your LES, combine those dollar amounts, and then take a look at it being combined to see the difference. Some people lose money. Some people don't. But that's the best way to get it, is to look at those numbers. All right. So in order to get any credit for it at all, you must pay for it. And it's 3% of your earnings plus the interest. The first 2 years is free. Once the third year hits, that's when you start paying interest. So whatever the interest rate was for that year, that is what you're going to pay. And it, of course, changes each year until it's paid in full. So even if you're doing like a payroll deductions, $50 a paycheck, until you pay it up, it's still incurring interest until it's paid in full. Okay. So the USERRA, Uniform Services, Employment and Reemployment Rights Act. So those employees, even in this room, who are still serving, their service can be either Title 10 or Title 32, whereas for us, when we served in the military and it didn't interrupt our time frame, it had to be Title 10. So must pay for it, pay the deposit. If not get paid, then no service, no credit for it. So pretty much the same rules. It's just that when we calculate USERRA, we try to calculate it under the lesser of what they would pay. So we try to make sure that it's not as costly. But just to let you guys know, if you were placed on orders, and say 6 months you were on military orders, then that time is not going to be creditable toward retirement. So when we process your retirement, if you didn't pay for it, then that's 6 months that we take out. Or if it's a year, then it's a year that we take out. Because it has to be paid for in order to be creditable. So lesser of the two, 3% of base pay plus the interest, or whatever the FERS contributions would have been had they not been called to active duty. So the process for paying this is the first thing you have to do is find out how much you earned the entire time you are on military service. And that's what that RI 20-97, that is actually going to go to the finance office of whatever branch of service you served with. And so that information is also on our website. So if you were with the Marines, then you would send that form to the Marines, and they would calculate and tell you how much you earned during the entire time frame. And that's how we'll know what 3% of what, and then we can go forward with the calculations. You'll also, once they return that RI 20-97 to you, you want to make sure your DD-214 is with it. Once they return that information to you, you'll then send it in to the Army Benefits Center, and along with the SF 3108, page 1, send that into ABC, and we'll do the rest. We'll make sure we do the calculations. We'll upload the information into your EOPF, and then we're going to forward it to DFAS, because when it comes to military retirement, or military deposits, I should say, those are paid through DFAS, through our payroll agency. The civilian and deposit and redeposit, those get paid to OPM. So there's a different place as far as where they go. We actually still take those as copies. So just want to throw that out there. Just in case it's faxed in, or you mail us a version that's not necessarily the wet signature. But basically what you want to do is make sure you get that in as soon as possible. Even if you decide that you just want to get it set up and later on decide you don't want to pay, at least it's already set up, and you won't actually start having any deductions until you tell DFAS how much you wanted to start paying and when you want those deductions to begin. Or you go to pay.gov and you just make those payments online. Once you get that paid in full letter back, you want to make sure that you get that in your EOPF as well. Very important, because if you move from one agency to the next, they don't send it to the agency that you're with. They only send that information to you. Okay. The difference between paying back a military deposit and buying back civilian deposit or redeposit service is the military deposit service must be paid before your date of retirement, must be paid in full. The civilian time, since you're retiring through OPM, they give you an opportunity to continue making payments, or, finalize the payment even after your retirement date. It's during the time that they're doing the final adjudications. I mean, it could take 4 months for them to do the final adjudications, but you still get an opportunity to pay any deposit or redeposits that you might have as far as civilian time. So they give you another opportunity to get credit for everything. But if you retire and you don't pay for the military time, then that's the last opportunity. Okay. And someone had also mentioned that they have it showing on your LES as paid. We used to be able to take that information. However, some people have multiple periods of military service. And when you look at the LES, you don't see a to and from date, so we don't know which period that was from. Some people might think that if they use their LES, then that means that all of those periods are paid for. So now OPM does require that it's documented as paid in full. Okay. This is just a copy or an example of a paid in full letter. You see how it has a time frame there, so that's why it's so important. And then also, this is called an IRR, Individual Retirement Record. This is basically a record that goes with you from every agency. So you'll have a new sheet for each agency. This document is very important because it shows your salary, your earnings, what you paid, what you did not pay. And on this form, if there was something right here, like a stamp and a dollar amount, that would just be proof that someone had received a refund. And so this, if we request this information from OPM, then what we do is put this in your EOPF. Because when we get these, first of all, sometimes it takes a little time to get them. Once we finally do get them, we want you to be able to see it so that when you go from one agency to the next, that information is in there. I do want to say to you guys that this year is the first time I'm briefing off of these slides. There's 122 slides now. So last November when I briefed, there was like 105 slides. So some of this information is like, you might see examples of things like that because certain things like life insurance and filling out the forms, they've actually put snapshots in there. It was a recommendation from past briefings and seminars. So if it's too long or if it's too short, then that's information that you can put in the ICE comment and we try to adjust. Of course, we can't please everyone, but we definitely try. So we're going to talk about retirement. Different types of retirement for us. What we really want to know is, when am I eligible and how much am I going to get? That's pretty much what we all want to know in here. Okay, so optional retirements, Voluntary Early Retirement Authority, or VERA, DSR, Deferred Retirement, Disability Retirements, and the Phased Retirement. In order for any one of us to be eligible for retirement, we must have at least 5 years of creditable service. So we must have at least 5 years of FERS. So if a person is, say, age 62, for age 62, all you need is 5 years of creditable service. What if that person only worked for 3 years under FERS and then had 2 years of military service? That equals 5, but it has to be 5 full years under FERS. So that person would still have to work for 5 full years in order to draw a retirement annuity. Main thing is you want to meet your minimum retirement age, and we'll talk about what that means to each one of us in this room because there's a chart. And then when you separate or retire, you must be covered under the FERS retirement system at that time. Okay. So anyone born between 1953 In 1964, that's age 56. Your minimum retirement age is 56. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay. And then anywhere in between, if you'll notice, they add on those months. Try to delay it a little bit longer. Okay? All right. So the optional, you may have heard, these words are interchangeable, these terms. The optional retirement, the voluntary retirement, basically it means you're eligible to retire without having to get any early retirement authority. So you're eligible for retirement. It's your option whether you want to do it or not. I just made that up. Retirement annuity, so MRA plus 10, minimum retirement age with at least 30 years of service. No penalties there, no penalties. 60, age 60 with at least 20 years of service, no penalties. Age 65 with at least 5 years of service, no penalties. 5 years of FERS. MRA with at least 10 years but less than 30, you get a 5% reduction for each year that you're under age 62. And people like to ask, well, I'm 58 right now, and when I turn 62, the reductions are going to stop, right? No, it is throughout the rest of your retirement. So the reductions do not stop. It's a permanent reduction in your retirement. So if you look at, it could be a 30% reduction depending on how far you are. If you're at your minimum age retirement, then it could be a 30-year reduction that's permanent. Okay? Also, not just a reduction, you don't even get the FERS annuity supplement. So that FERS annuity supplement, we call it the bridge to Social Security. So we've retired with our minimum retirement age, and we're before age 62, so we haven't actually met that age criteria yet to be able to actually draw Social Security, the earliest age to draw. Then it's something that gets us, in addition to FERS retirement, an additional annuity supplement, which is called the FERS annuity supplement. Right now it's still in place, because I know they keep talking about stuff like that, taking it away. But of course, every administration brings that up all over again. So you guys might not have that happen to you. It might be during my time. But for right now, everything is still in place. Your annuity will accrue the first day of the following month of your retirement. So basically, that's why it's best for FERS employees to retire the last day of the month. You can pick any day. We'll process it for you. But we always let you know the best day to retire. Some people, during January, before we go into the next full pay period of that year, maybe we'll say, this year might have been January 6th. January 6th. Before the first full pay period of January, January 7th, began, people were using January 6th as a retirement date. Instead of going out December 31st, they wanted to wait until January because they had a lot of use or lose. If they were to select a date after January 7th, then they would have lost anything over 240 hours. So what they did was had their date, January 6th, January 3rd, whatever the case is, so they can have all their annual leave paid out and not lose any of it. Of course, they also wanted to be paid out in a different calendar year, the year that they're going to be retiring in, for tax purposes. So there's time frames when people do choose a date other than end of the month, but it's for other financial reasons. So for the MRA plus 10, there's something called postponing your retirement. So if you want to postpone your retirement because, hey, it's an MRA plus 10, you're going to get some penalties there. You're not going to get the FERS annuity supplement anyway. Some people want to try and postpone it and not submit their retirement until they turn 62. So basically, you'd be separating from your agency, and from the time that you separate, all the way up until you actually start drawing that retirement, you're not going to get any of your health and life insurance during that time. But once they reinstate, or excuse me, once they process your retirement, they then reinstate the health and life insurance benefits if you want those to be still in, if you still want to receive those. Your sick leave, any sick leave that you had left on the books when you separated, that sick leave is going to be used in the calculation of your retirement. So postpone retirement for those who don't want to receive those penalties and don't want to draw, or okay with not drawing your retirement right away. They're eligible for the MRA plus 10 at the time that they separate. They just choose to postpone it until later. Okay. The VERA, Voluntary Early Retirement Authority. These are usually going on with some kind of rift when the agency's doing some kind of reconstruct and they need to either get people separated, retired, reducing that workforce in a way where anyone who's eligible or close to being eligible can actually retire without those penalties, or get those folks who maybe want to retire but not quite sure, so that's when they try to offer that other thing, that VSIP. But for the most part, this is something that is only the agency can do it. You can't say, well, hey, I'm going to submit my paperwork for a VERA because I'm 50 and I've got at least 20 years of service and I'm ready to go. Well, it's something that the agency has to offer to you. So if they do, then basically you won't get that age reduction for FERS because it's a voluntary early reduction, so it takes off that penalty for you. And if you do have a CSRS component, then basically you might see the 7%, excuse me, no, that's the deposit. You'll see a 2% for your early age retirement if you're under 55. Most of you in here don't really have a CSRS component, so that wouldn't apply to you. But if it did and you were offered a VERA, then you might see a 2% reduction. You won't see the 5% reduction for retiring early, even though you're a FERS employee, if you get offered a VERA. This part's important right here. You will be entitled to receive the FERS annuity supplement, but you won't get that until you actually meet your MRA. So if they offer you the VERA and you're 50, then when you reach your minimum age of retirement, then you start seeing that additional FERS annuity start kicking in. Okay. So it's not paid right away. That one is still not payable until you meet your minimum retirement age. The discontinued service retirement. This is when they're really trying to get rid of either the installation is going somewhere else or your job is no longer going to be needed, that series or whatever they're trying to do to get rid of that seat or that series, or the installation is going from one place to another. They may actually be doing a discontinued service retirement, DSR. Still the same rules. The age requirement for both is going to be age 50 with at least 20 years of service, or any age with at least 25 years of service. So if a person was any age and they have, of course, at least 5 years of FERS and they pay for their military, then this might very well get you to that time frame that you can be able to draw this if it was something that was going on at your organization. Mm-hmm. Of course, you have to have any type of specific written notice for both. And no penalties for early retirement because it's this type of authority. Now, the thing about this one is, whenever you retire, or separate, whenever they tell you you need to be off the rolls, if it's the 19th of April, then you've got to be off the 19th of April. One thing that's allowed is that your annuity will start to commence the 20th, the very next day. Okay, so not only are they just, telling you got to leave, the least they can do is not have you miss out on any days that your retirement annuity accrues. Okay. Of course, the supplement is going to be received when you meet your minimum age requirement. And when it's a DSR, you can't get any VSIPs. So that VSIP right now is up to like $40,000. That's before taxes. But you can't receive that under the DSR if they offered that. And also severance pay. That's not something that will be afforded to you. And a lot of times when people do accept that VSIP or get out on those type of authorities, especially when you accept the VSIP, there's other things in place where you can't go back to federal service within 5 years. So there's a bunch of other things that will apply. All right, so deferred retirement. I talked about postponed, and this almost seems like it would be similar because you're kind of waiting until later on to apply. But the difference is, remember postponed, I said that you meet your minimum age requirement and the length of service. So you meet qualifications before you separate. This one would be for someone like me. I'm not eligible for retirement right now at all, but I do have time with the government. So I can just leave my money in place, separate from my agency, and go get this really nice private sector job that's paying me double, but leave my retirement money in place, and then later on I can go ahead and draw straight through OPM and then get my retirement deductions coming out, get my retirement pay. So that's the difference between those two. Another difference is I won't get my life insurance or my health insurance reinstated because I didn't meet any criteria at the time that I separate. The sick leave will not be added toward my length of service or anything, but I'll still have my money in place so that I can draw on it, whatever is beneficial. Some people decide to take that money out. And if you look at your LES, it's block 19 of that LES, you'll see how much you've contributed toward the retirement system. When you change different agencies, you'll see that dollar amount changes. Because that means you change a different payroll agency. But that doesn't mean you lose any of that money, because all that money is on file, that information is on file with OPM. But if you take that money out and they still have a portion of it that they will tax, and they pay it out to you, if I decided to come back, then that's where I got to pay all that money back, plus the interest. So for me, and for a lot of people, we let them know that even if I end up drawing $250 a month, I'll benefit more from drawing that rather than taking that money out and having it taxed some more and, getting it that one-time payment. The disability retirement. So as FERS employees, all we need is 18 months of federal service in order to apply. The disability process right now with OPM, because OPM is the only one who can actually approve disability retirements, it's over 12 months. So basically, if a person submit a packet to ABC for disability, we verify all this service, do the calculation, we give you a prelim counseling, let you know what's going to happen, approximately what you receive, things like that, then we send it off to OPM. And OPM is the one that decides whether or not your condition is unable to render useful or efficient service because of the disease or the injury. So basically, we don't make the decision, but we send it forward. And it has been taken at least 12 months. So anyone who is eligible for retirement already, we try to advise them that it's best to just retire, because your retirement, whether it's disability or voluntary, is going to be the same. Once you meet that eligibility, even if it is for disability reasons, it's better for you to just go ahead and apply for retirement. So if that's anything that you ever thought about or have questions on, definitely give us a call, because we can go detailed with you guys individually. Some people think that I'm eligible for optional retirement, but if I apply for a disability, then maybe it's not going to get taxed. Well, it will be taxed. That we can guarantee. Taxes will come out of that. The bad part is, if you're already eligible, you can pick whatever date you want. With a disability, you have to wait for OPM to let you know when you can retire. I don't know what that sound is, but it's weird. If I see anybody start running, I'm going to take off too. Okay. So this is just to give you an idea of what the disability computation is. The first 12 months, if you are approved by OPM, is going to be 60% of your high three salary minus whatever Social Security approves you, because a requirement for applying for the FERS retirement is that you also have to apply for the Social Security disability retirement. They go hand in hand, because as FERS employees, we pay into FERS and Social Security. That's our retirement system. So the FERS portion is going to be paid out through FERS or OPM if you're approved. The Social Security portion is paid out through Social Security. So the two combined make up your retirement. The only thing is, in order to keep from double dipping or getting from both, Social Security twice, Social Security benefits are deducted from the 60%. Now, we are only 1% times our high three average salary. That's what our FERS retirement is. So this looks really good. 60% are of our high three average salary, minus 100% of whatever Social Security gives us. After the first 12 months is recalculated, and our high three average salary times 40% of our annuity, minus only 60%. So they won't take the full amount off of whatever your Social Security benefits are, because they lowered your FERS retirement check, so they lower the amount that they're going to take from your deduct for Social Security purposes. So once you reach the age of 62, your annuity is recalculated. So it's recalculated as if you never went on disability retirement. It's considered a regular retirement at that time. And of course, you can draw your Social Security benefits, regular Social Security benefits, without having the penalty of any reductions coming from your retirement check. So at 62 is recalculated again, which means it's at 1% times our high three average salary. And then if we decide to draw Social Security as early as 62, then we can do so without any deductions. Okay. And again, I was saying that if you're eligible for retirement already, it's best to go ahead and apply, because it's considered your earned annuity. If you're eligible for regular retirement, no need to apply for disability, and you're already going to get the same dollar amount. You're just waiting for someone to tell you when you need to retire. Okay. Those are the requirements: meeting the MRA 30 years, age 60 and 20, or 62 with at least 5 years. These are the forms, and I won't go too far into these documents, because if you definitely are considering it, I want you to give us a call, and we can go over that information with you. And again, Social Security, you have to apply for Social Security. It's a requirement. You can just go online to the Social Security website, apply, print off your confirmation, and send that with the packet. If you haven't done that and you still want to go ahead and send your packet into ABC, you'll just want to make sure you do this one, FedMERS statement, and that just lets us know that you're aware that you have to apply for Social Security, and you're going to do it. You're in the process of doing it. Okay? And you've got to send your medical documents when you send your packet in. The phased retirement. Has anyone heard of the phased retirement? Okay, so I was on the phased retirement committee, or I am on the phased retirement committee. And I get to see the difference in calculating a phased retirement as opposed to just retiring as an, voluntary retirement. So of course, the idea of a phased retirement is so that you can leave that knowledge behind. You can train the workforce that's going to be taking up your spot. You can go ahead and ease out of retirement and not jump full-fledged into it. That's for people who don't really know what they want to do in retirement, so I guess they want to just ease on in it. But this is an option. The only thing is your agency has to be on board with this. They won't let us at ABC do it. And there's a lot of Army, Department of the Army employees who do not participate in phased retirement because their agency will not let them. I also work with the Defense Contract Management Agency, DCMA, and we do have some people who were interested, so we give them estimates. And the estimates are pretty lengthy because we've got to let them know what their retirement would be, because remember, when you go into phased, you're only going to draw 50% of what your retirement check would be. And you're also working part-time, so you draw 50% of your retirement check and 50% of your earnings. And usually the time frame is about a year that you're in that phased retirement stage. And then it's recalculated after that year to put you into full retirement. So of course, some people want to see what the numbers are before they make this decision. Some people are excited about it because that means I don't have to show up and stay all day. And I still draw retirement, I still draw some salary, but there's other things that come along with this. You actually have to be training. You sign an agreement, your supervisor has to validate for you, saying that your position is one that is crucial and we need your knowledge to pass on to the next person taking your place for the workforce. Basically, you have to be age 55 with 30 years of service or 60 with 20 years. You must be full-time at the time that you go into phased. So you must be already a full-time employee and going into phased retirement, which is part-time. So if you guys have not really heard of phased retirement, it's probably not something that was put out because it is up to the agency to actually want to participate in this. They put a lot of information behind it up at OPM to kind of get this going, and some people are not seeing that it's actually attractive enough for them. There's maybe some people who actually may lose like $85 or so, but that's still enough for some people to change their mind. All right, so the FERS annuity supplement is only the calculation from when you were paying into FERS retirement. So if you see or have had an estimate from ABC and saw that your FERS annuity supplement is a lot smaller than what you would normally get for Social Security, because it only pays for the time when you first hired under FERS. Okay? So that's the only time that calculation comes into effect. So even if you started working, for me, started working years ago, back in, a long time ago, when I was 16 at Pizza Hut, then that time, even though I was paying into Social Security, I won't see that calculated with this FERS annuity supplement. So you'll see it as smaller. So you'll see your retirement amount, and then you'll see your FERS annuity supplement from the time that you were paying into the FERS retirement system only. Okay. So benefit paid until 62, and remember, it's only for certain employees. So if you do an MRA plus 10 and you've got less than 30 years, you don't get the FERS annuity supplement, and you get penalties. Okay. Payable through the early of the following dates. So the last day of the month that you turn age 62, that's when they'll stop it. The last day of the first month, you are entitled to Social Security benefits. So whichever dates apply to you. Now, the FERS annuity supplement is going to stop at age 62 no matter what. So even if you don't apply for Social Security, it's going to stop anyway. Some people want to wait until 67 before they start drawing their Social Security benefits. And you definitely have that option. But since 62 is the earliest age that you can apply, then it's going to stop automatically at 62. Okay. So in order to be eligible for that annuity supplement, at least one calendar year under the FERS retirement system, retire with an immediate annuity at or after your minimum retirement age under the VERA or DSR. So that's when if you separate under these authorities and say you're age 53, then you won't start getting this FERS annuity supplement until you meet the minimum age, whether it's 56 or 56 and 4 months. Yes, sir. Right, it is. No, not on this one. But that is when we were talking about, I'm going to go back a little bit here. I want 7? Oh. So that's when we were talking about eligibility. Okay. So your minimum retirement age and at least 30 years, no penalties at all. 60 and 20, no penalties. 62 and 5. Was that the part? 30 years is ideal so that you don't get any penalties or have any reductions in your retirement annuity. But it's not necessarily. Right, but if you're at 60. Here's the thing. Once you reach age 60, then the requirement changes to 20 years. At 60, yes. Mm-hmm. And you get the FERS annuity supplement. So if you're age 60 with 19 years of service, then that's considered MRA plus 10. Although you're after your MRA, you just don't have the full 30 years. Okay, so certain provisions like under special provisions or special retirement, and everybody's retirement is special, but in this case, they're talking about law enforcement officers, air traffic controllers, and firefighters. Some MilTechs who have a mandatory retirement date or age, those individuals. But who is not eligible for that annuity supplement is going to be disability retirement employees, the MRA plus 10, because they didn't meet the full length of service criteria, deferred retirement, those people who are separating from the agency, leaving their retirement in place like me, with not eligible for anything at this time. Employees retiring at age 62 or older, of course they won't receive it because the annuity supplement stops at age 62. Okay. And of CSRS employees. That's one thing that they don't get, so that's good. I mean, their retirements look a lot better than ours. That's why I say that. Well, since you're still actually working, no. So the question was, is the FERS annuity supplement payable under the phased retirement? So if you're in the phased retirement system, or you're phasing into full retirement, then keep in mind that you're still an employee, still paying into Social Security, so you won't be entitled to start drawing that annuity supplement. So that's something else to take into account if that's something that was available to you, the phased retirement, that's something else that's not beneficial to you there. So what I would like to do is take a quick break. All right, let's go ahead and get back into it. Now, I saw that I have, we'll talk. You never know when you're gonna see somebody that you know. So I know I gave a lot of information out. And when it comes to the FERS annuity supplement, I think there's more questions. So I would like to open the floor to a couple of questions.
Yeah, I had a question, but we answered it, but she has a question.
Somebody has a question.
If you're collecting the annuity and the government takes that program away, will you still collect it? Will it be
You know,
grandfathered?
it may be grandfathered in, it may not be grandfathered in.
So
But of
there's
course,
really
I can't even speak on it until the policies come down, and when they make the decision, then we'll know. Because it'd be nice to grandfather people in who have been paying into it, but we don't know. When you guys know, we'll know. Okay. Because it'll apply to all of us.
The only question I had was when it says the amount, 17,040, is that all income or only your retirement income from the government?
Okay, so.
I have other income.
Okay, so when they talk about this, like the earnings test, they're not talking about your annuity or your pension or anything like that. They're talking about employment, like jobs, businesses. So anything where you're earning income from other than your annuities and your pension. They're not talking about Social Security. They're talking about employment type thing. Nope, that's a pension, so not that one. I didn't even go over the slide yet. I don't have to now. No, it's just. Any more questions about FERS annuity supplement? Did you still have a question? Right.
So when you say on your FERS, on your estimate, you'll see how much you're entitled to for FERS, and then you'll see your Social Security.
The FERS annuity supplement?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I will still, like if I get my Social Security benefit sheet every year. And
right,
see,
it's different.
Yes, so I will get what is on my sheet, right? Not what is on.
Right, because this is only taken into account when you paid into the FERS retirement system.
Thank you.
So back when I was working at Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, all those things before high school, leading all the way up until I joined the military, and then finally started working as a federal civilian under the FERS program. Anything prior to that, that is what I'll see when I draw full, or I don't want to say full, because full is 67, but when I draw Social Security benefits. So when you see your retirement annuity on that estimate report, it's also going to include a FERS annuity supplement, if you're eligible, to show only the amount that you're eligible for when you were paying into the FERS retirement system. So
he can't hear it on the recording.
You'll still be entitled to everything you've paid into Social Security, but just not during that bridge. So you're not actually eligible to start drawing Social Security until 62, but it's right now it's still into play, but it's the bridge to Social Security, is what we like to call it. Okay, so I'll repeat what she just said. Can I repeat the question when someone asks it? And yes, I will, because it's easier, especially for recording purposes, for me to say the question over. So yes, I will do that. So just to go through this slide right here, this is talking about the FERS annuity supplement. Supplement is tested. So when it's talking about here, I know you guys see that annuity supplement will be offset by $1 for every $2 over the amount. They're talking about over this amount. So if you're earning, after you retire, you start earning income over $17,040, then you're going to be subject to the earnings test, because when you go back to work, you pay into Social Security again. So they do that earnings test on you. So what's affected is not your retirement check, but your supplement. Okay? And it's not going to take away from any retirement pensions like military, civilian retirement check, TSP. It's not going to take away from that. It's going to take away from your private businesses, any earnings from that. And people often wonder if that VSIP is going to be included. So if it's paid out during that year, is that going to be included in their earnings test? And no. Retirement forms. So not all these forms are going to apply to each and every one of you. But I do have to let you guys know that when it comes to what you see here, for the most part, this is what's going to be included in your retirement packet. So that SF 3107, that is the application for immediate retirement. If anyone was considering a deferred retirement or postponed retirement, you're not going to actually fill this form out, because this form is basically for people who are going to start drawing their retirement immediately or within a month after they retire. So you actually would resign if you did those other types of retirements and apply directly through OPM. But for the rest of us, it's going to be the 3107 application. Someone mentioned earlier that you can go into EBIS and fill out this form, or excuse me, e-retirement. It's a tab in EBIS. And although it says submit, you can't submit it right now because it's not going to go anywhere. You'd actually have to print off all the PDF forms, sign it, initial it in those the spots that you need to, and then mail it in. But for right now, it is a really good way to fill out the retirement form without having 15 pages for one application. So when it comes to that 3107, there's about 3 or 4 pages that you're actually going to submit. You do have to include a copy of your marriage certificate. Don't send the original. If you send the original, we're going to mail it back to you, but we prefer that you don't. So just a Xerox copy of that. The schedules A, B, and C, that is for military retired or retainer pay. That's something that OPM wants to know about. It's also for if you ever submitted a claim with the Office of Workmen's Compensation. Okay. That one won't necessarily be applicable if none of that applies to you. So you can fill it out and put NA on it and send it, sign the bottom and send it in. We'll know that you've acknowledged the form, it just doesn't apply. The spousal consent form, that's the 3107-2. If you're married, that is very important, kind of like the military where they have the survivor's benefit. Well, there's also something that we have as far as civilian employees are concerned where we can select, decide whether or not we want to leave a survivor benefit. And of course, the decision isn't solely up to us, because this form right here, you got to have it notarized and signed off by your spouse. So whether you decide to leave partial survivor annuity or no survivor annuity at all, you will have to make sure that that form is included in your packet. The SF-2818, that's the life insurance form. So if you currently have life insurance and you've had life insurance for the last 5 years going into retirement, then you will have to submit this form with your packet. Even if you decide you want to drop the life insurance altogether, you still have to fill out that form. W-4P and the state tax form. So one thing we can be assured of is that our retirements will be taxed federally. When it comes to the state taxing your retirement, it depends on where you live. So if you move to Texas, excuse me, I don't want to say Texas, Florida, sunny Florida, then they don't tax retirement checks. So you want to make sure that you are aware, wherever you're retiring, whether or not taxes for state purposes will be included. One way to find the state tax form is you can go on the IRS website, and they do have this tax form for each state if it's applicable. The DD-214 or any orders or any type of military service that you performed, even if you're retiring, or excuse me, even if you're retired military, you're not waiving your retirement at all, you still have to submit this because this is a requirement for OPM. And I know I keep throwing out OPM, but that's the Office of Personnel Management, just in case anyone wasn't aware of what that meant. They process our retirements and they actually put out the laws to us. So of course, if any changes to the supplement or the high 3 changing, then that's information that they'll put out to us in policy. And military deposits, if you've paid it and you don't know whether or not that proof of paid military deposit or civilian deposit is in your EOPF, go ahead and send a copy with your retirement packet. It'll just prevent a delay of us having to ask you for it, or calculating your retirement without that time when you've already paid for it, because we want to make sure you get credit for it before we send your packet forward to OPM. And if your retirement is involuntary, like a DSR, then you want to make sure that your written notice is included. So, of course, they're going to give you a proposal of separation or whatever the case. You want to make sure that it's in there, that memorandum signed. And then the VSIP. If you are going to be separating under the VERA, the Voluntary Early Retirement Authority, then you want to make sure that if they are also offering the money with that, then you want to let us know how you want it paid out, and that's also a form that you'll have to submit. Yes, sir. Is there any form required for health benefits? No. Unless you want to suspend your health insurance. And I'll definitely talk about that. Right now, we can't suspend our health insurance. It's just canceling it. So I will touch on that because that's very important going into retirement, especially for some people with TRICARE. Yes. That was the question. And the answer is yes. You do have to have it for at least 5 years prior, just like that life insurance. And we will talk about that after lunch, because I don't want anyone to fall asleep on me when I get to that part. I don't want to fall asleep on myself. So if you need any of these forms, they are all located on the ABC website. If you're ready to start filling out your packet, you can go into the EBIS system under e-retirement, and they're right there. That information will save. So wherever you stop off at, it'll still be there. But remember, EBIS is CAC enabled. So you do have to be at a CAC computer or have your CAC reader plugged in so that you can fill out your retirement packet on that site. Okay. Sick leave. Most of the time people want to know exactly all the way down to the month, the day, how much, if I save up X amount of days of sick leave, how much will my retirement be? Can you calculate my sick leave to project out for 2 years? And we can't. The only thing that we can do is calculate what you have at the time as far as your sick leave is concerned. So 2,087 hours, that's a total of 1 year towards your annuity. A lot of people try to ask us how much do they need to save, and we can't give you any advice on that part because, as we know, sick leave is meant to use if you're sick, so we can't give any advice. That's what we've been told. Okay? So if you had a component under CSRS and you had sick leave while you were under CSRS, then there may be some frozen sick leave that's not used right now or not included with your FERS service. And that's considered frozen sick leave, and we look for that as well. So for death and service cases, this is something that we also use in order to calculate a survivor annuity. And this is when you're still working, not after you retire. So if you're still working, and if a person were to pass away, then we'll use that unused sick leave toward the computation of your survivor's benefit. The second bullet said, adds to length of service for computation purposes only. So some people like to think it's like a terminal leave type thing, like for military. It's not. Basically, the only thing that you can do is have it calculated in there. Your retirement date is going to stay the same. However, when we calculate that money, that dollar amount, that's when we add that sick leave in there so that you can get that additional dollar amount. And I'm going to go into how to calculate it. Yes. Mm-hmm. So the question was, if we have sick leave, and depending on what the time, years, month, and days was, will that bump them up to an additional year or so, or months? And it can, yes. And I actually have right here where we're going to go into next of how you can figure that out. Okay? So when it comes to using this chart here, and I know everybody can see this. I can barely see it, and I'm right here. But just to give you an idea of how to read it, let's say that a person had 410 hours of unused sick leave, and you're using this chart and you want to see what does that mean to you as far as months and days. So if we go to this right here, we see that it skips. So it goes to 406, and then it jumps to 412. So in this case, if a person has, say, 410 hours of unused sick leave, then what they're going to do is bump it up to, or round it up to the highest number that they see there on the chart. So in this case, this person is going to use 412 hours, and that's equivalent to 2 months and 11 days. So that means that 2 months and 11 days will be added toward their length of service. So if a person has 19 years, 8 months, and 25 days, then we add that sick leave in. So this is just a math problem, and we kind of turn things around. So you put the years in the front, and then months and days, and that top number, the top date, is the date that you plan to retire. And then underneath that, of course, is a simple subtraction problem, but you're going to use your retirement service computation date. So not your leave service computation date, but your retirement service computation date, because that's what's actually creditable toward retirement. And that's how you come up with the number of how many years, months, and days you have. And then you go to the chart and plot whatever sick leave you have or you might have if you don't use any of those days. And once you plot it, you determine how many hours it is and convert it. So in this situation, it's 1,136 hours gives this individual 6 months and 16 days. So once they add in the length of service plus the sick leave, then of course it comes up with something that's not quite months. So you got to make sure that you correct it so that you can subtract and carry over so that it's actually, for this case, 31 years, 4 months, and 5 days. When it comes to days, it's dropped off. So your retirement calculations are based on years and months. People want to know, hey, if I got 5 days, then I'm going to take leave. And it's yours to do with whatever you please. It's just that once your retirement goes to OPM, before it goes to OPM, DFAS is going to send them your time cards and all that information as far as how many you actually have as far as annual leave and sick leave. So we say leave a cushion. 5 days is not a bad cushion to leave, but of course it's yours to do with what you please. The reason we say don't go all the way in and take that away is because if they recalculate it, the last thing we want them to do is take away from the months or possibly take away from a year. So we always indicate that it's good to leave a small cushion there so that they don't take anything away from your calculations. Okay, so high 3. Right now, we're still using high 3. Nothing's been changed. And when it comes to the high 3 average salary, is usually calculated at your highest earnings toward the end of your career. For some people, they may have taken a change to lower grade, maybe to move back to a different locality area, be closer to family. But whatever the case is, if that situation occurred in your history, we will go back into your calculations to see where your highest salary was earned. And it's not necessarily your highest grade, but a lot of times they come hand in hand, but it doesn't always mean your highest grade. So we take three consecutive years. So we go back in your history to calculate 3 consecutive years. We can't say take a year from 1998 and a year from 2005 and then this year. We can't do that. It has to be consecutive, and we try to make sure it is the highest of your earnings when we're calculating your retirement.
You're really talking about 78 pay periods and not 3 years. If there's 26 pay periods, or not 78, excuse me.
Right.
26 times 3, and that's what you're really looking at is
whatever conversion to 3 years, yes. Okay. And it is full pay period. So the question was, am I really talking about, how many did you say that was? 78. Basically, you take whatever retirement date that you select and you go back 3 years. And that's basically how you're going to calculate it. So however many days or pay periods that is, that's basically what it is, a full 3 years. Okay? So if it's a pay period, it may add a few more days, but it's basically 1 full year. I'm going to say 365 days. Honestly, that's what it is. So just so that if you're calculating it on your own, you'll have an idea. There's also a tool in EBIS where you can calculate your high 3 average salary. You just look at all your 50s and your pay changes over the years and plug that information in. So we try to put these tools in there so that you can maybe get an idea of what your retirement will be if you want to try and do that on your own. Does not include overtime. People often wonder if it does, but it does not. You don't want to use your LESs over the years because that'll include different types of pay. Okay, so you want to use your SF50, your total your adjusted salary that's including your base pay and your locality. Yes, sir. No, not hazardous pay, it depends on the type of position that you're in. So for the rest of us, no. If you're wage grade and you have a different shift, let me restate the question. So the question was, is it hazardous pay included in that high 3? And that answer is no, it doesn't include that. Okay, so when you look at that, if you've served overseas, whatever's with your base pay and your locality pay, that is what you're going to use when you calculate it. If you are wage grade and you may have had a different shift, then your LES, excuse me, not your LES, but your SF50 is going to show different salaries. And they're going to take into account whatever salary or whatever shift you were on when they calculate it. Okay, so there's doctors, there are firefighters who have the different things included in their high 3 average salary that we don't have. So when they say special retirement system, they're talking about law enforcement, air traffic controllers, and firefighters who get additional things included in their high 3, not us. Okay. So as we all know, our high 3 average salary times 1% times the years and months of service. But here's the good news. The high 3 average salary can be calculated at 1.1% times the number of years and months of service if we are age 62 with at least 20 or more years. So we can get that extra 0.1%. Right there. So as far as reductions and deductions, reductions are typically the permanent things that come out of your retirement. They come out permanently. And I always like to say there's a caveat to the list of permanent reductions. And then deductions are the ones that we can change over the years. So for reductions, MRA plus 10, remember I said if you do a MRA plus 10 and you got less than 30 years, you get that permanent reduction. 5% for each year you're under the age of 62. That's something that's going to continue to come out. Even after you pass the age of 62, it's going to always be deducted from your retirement check. But what it does do is give us an opportunity to retire if we're just ready to go. Deposits or redeposits for CSRS component. So certain redeposits or deposits, we don't have to pay it. But if it's under CSRS rules, we might actually get credit toward our length of service, but they will deduct, if we do not pay it, that amount from our retirement check permanently. So if a person has a redeposit under the CSRS rules, and say the deposit or the redeposit to pay back is like, we'll say $5,000. People usually try to calculate how much it would take for them to recoup that money and stop taking it out of their salary, their retirement check. But it's not going to happen. They're going to continue to take it out forever. It's permanent. Now, the one that I say there's a caveat is the election to survivor's benefit. Now, you can make an election when you retire, but should your wife or your husband pass away, then you let OPM know so that you no longer have to have that reduction coming out of your salary or retirement check. As far as deductions are concerned, the health insurance, life insurance, taxes, long-term care, and the FedVIP, that dental and vision coverage. We actually have control over those because we can make changes during open season. We can decrease our life insurance coverage or reduce it altogether and get rid of it. Taxes, you can do a new W-4P or a new tax form and make adjustments there. So those things we have more control over after retirement. I know you guys can't see this form right here, but this will be very important. If you've actually saw a retirement application, you know that this is going to be a requirement if you're married. If you're not married, they still expect for you to initial it. So if you're not currently married, or if you say, I'm not leaving a survivor benefit, and he or she is just going to have to sign off and deal with it, then this is where you'll initial. This means I choose an annuity payable only during my lifetime. They're not going to deduct anything from your salary, or excuse me, your retirement check. They're not going to reduce anything. But if you're going to do the full amount right here, you're going to initial, and that means I choose a reduced annuity with the maximum survivor annuity for my spouse. The maximum amount that we can possibly leave for our survivor, that's what you're saying that you want to do. The second box is for partial. You'll do a partial annuity. So the maximum that we can leave is 50% of our retirement check. That's the most. Partial would be 25% of our retirement check. Okay. And then we've got insurable interest. The insurable interest is interesting because that is based on the age difference between you and the person that you care for. I had a situation where this gentleman was retiring, and he was about 78 years old. His girlfriend was like 45, and he had to take the physical. So they can say that, okay, if you're going to leave this insurable interest for someone else, first of all, they calculate it based on the age difference, and they make him do a physical, not the person that he's leaving the money for, but the employee. So if it's not a spouse, but there's someone else that you want to do an insurable interest for, it will be pretty pricey once they calculate it and it starts to deduct from your retirement check. So we like to say, if that's not something that you want to do, but you are in that situation, we say make sure that your beneficiary forms are updated because you want to make sure that that goes to whoever you want it to go to instead of having so much coming out of your fixed income. But it is an option. And then if you have to leave to an ex or former spouse, there's also an option to do that there. Okay. Now, if you've divorced as a federal employee, then you want to make sure that you send your divorce decree here. Whether or not there's anything payable to that ex-spouse, because it helps for a couple things. First reason is you don't want any delays in processing your retirement, especially if there is something payable to an ex-spouse. And the second thing is, if there is nothing payable, you don't want anybody trying to claim anything later on. So you want to make sure you put that, information on file with OPM. Even if you are not retired yet, go ahead and put that on file. Okay, so I'm going to go through the next 2 slides, and then we're going to start getting ready for lunch. So basically, this is just going over the cost that you'd actually pay. It's pretty much going to be, if you're doing the full amount, 10% of whatever your annuity is. If you're doing partial, which is 25% of what your retirement check is, then there's going to be a 5% reduction of whatever your annuity is. And this example here just gives an annuity that's based on $12,000 per year, and 10% of that is $1,200 annually. And basically, after the reduction, that's what you're going to get paid out. And of course, that's times 12, and that's before taxes come out. So that's just for this example here. And then this is what your survivor will be entitled to. 50% of your overall retirement. And then for a partial, it's starting off for this example, $12,000, 5% reduction. That means it's costing you annually $600, and this is what you'll have remaining. And then your survivor will be entitled to $3,000. Of course, that's times 12, so it's going to be paid on a monthly basis. And I'm going to say this now, I'm going to say it one more time toward the end of the session, but if you carry the health insurance for your family and you're getting ready to go into retirement, in order for your family to be able to continue that health insurance, you've got to do one of these, either full or partial. Otherwise, if you were to pass away in retirement, then your health insurance will go away. All right, so if you were to pass away, any of us, and we are married, then our survivor benefits can be payable to our spouses. Now, if our spouse decides that they want to remarry before they turn 55, then that money is going to stop, and they won't get that anymore. Now, if that marriage should end in like annulment or death, then they can go ahead and apply through OPM to have that money start up again. If they are past the age of 55, they can do whatever they want, marry whoever they want, so, and they'll keep going. I didn't tell my husband that because he liked that kind of stuff. All right, so does anyone have any questions? Yes?
For your spouse to get the benefits or the survivor benefits, and they pass away, what do you do at that point?
So if you signed up in retirement for your spouse to receive your survivor benefits, then you'll go through OPM. You'll notify the Office of Personnel Management so that you can have that reduction stopped.
Can it be designated to anybody else?
Only if you remarry. So it's only for a spouse. Really, the survivor benefit is meant for a spouse. So if you do remarry, then you want to let OPM know that you remarried, and that's a qualifying life event for a couple of other things, but definitely to get that going again.
So my question actually is, okay, if your spouse or significant other is a foreign national and you retire or die when you are OCONUS, how does this process work then?
Oh, okay, so there's some things that you'll want to have in place. So the question was, if you pass away and your spouse is a foreign national, right? And you're Oconus,
Yes.
how does that situation work?
Because the Army guys have like action officers and things of that sort. DA civilians don't. And
Right.
so how does that,
Okay.
how these notifications happen then?
So I'm just going to go ahead and talk about this slide here. So basically, we want to know how the notification and the processes work. So somebody's going to notice that you didn't show up for work. Supervisor, someone. But anyway, it's going to get along the chain. And what they have to do is notify the Army Benefits Center. Once they notify us, within 24 hours, we're making contact with this family member. We've got to look for your beneficiary forms. Hopefully they're on file and up to date. And then we reach out to the family members. Of course, we don't get to go to the residence because we're located on Fort Riley, but we assign a counselor to work with the family. We send out all the forms. We look up to see whatever is payable for the spouse. And if there's children, what's payable for the children. And we go over all of that information with them. We make sure that they've got the contact for TSP, because there's money in the TSP that may be payable. Anything that's remaining on your payroll account as far as sick leave, excuse me, not sick leave, because we calculate that with the annuity, annual leave, bonuses, anything travel pay that hasn't been paid out, you can designate who you want to have those paid out to. So we've got like 4 beneficiary forms as FERS employees that we need to make sure are updated. And I'll let you know those. But we do make contact, and we talk basically about the realm that we can handle as far as paying out monies, and give them other guidance as far as if there's military involved, applying for Social Security. That's very minimal, but we talk about FERS, retirement. We talk about the thrift savings plan, We talk about anything left over on the payroll and the life insurance.
Okay, the last part was the state and local taxes that are given to the retirement. If the person is Oconus and the spouse is Oconus, is there some type of status of forces agreement or something that keeps the foreign government or the other government from keeping them?
Now the question was on taxes, foreign government, and how that's handled. That's further out of our realm. And so when it comes to calculating taxes, whether it's for retirement or survivor benefits, it's with the Office of Personnel Management. And so what we do is we send out all the documents, all the forms that we can, and a lot of that asks those questions in the survivor benefit packet, and then OPM will process it from there. Yes.
Question, if you have a ex-husband, you're remarried second time to someone else, would your ex, if the divorce decree does not state anything specific about retirement benefits or what have you, will the ex receive anything? I understand you have to send a copy of the divorce decree.
So the question was about if an ex is entitled to receive anything from your retirement?
Right, or do you need a signature on the survival benefit or anything?
No, when it has to do with the divorce, then when I said you want to make sure you send that to OPM, basically something's been agreed upon. Either they're entitled to a portion or they're not. So if they're entitled to a portion, whatever that percentage or dollar amount is, that's what OPM needs so that they can deduct that from your monthly annuity and pay that to the ex-spouse. So if it's not something that you guys have agreed on during the divorce proceedings, then it's not something that you'd have to worry about. If anything were to change, then that's more than likely going back to court and making that change. But if there's nothing payable, it's just a good idea to put it on file, because once OPM sees that you've retired, they're going to want to see it to make sure that they are paying the money out to you that you're entitled to and anyone else if they're entitled to it. And there's times when people pay from their annuity an ex-spouse and a current spouse. And then whatever's left is not much, but they got that. Do we have any more questions?
Is it adjustable after I retire to the lower level?
I want to make sure I got this question right. You said
I select the survivor benefit and retire.
Mm-hmm.
And I take the maximum amount.
Okay.
10 years down the road, I wish to reduce it. Can I do that?
You know, the question was, if I go into retirement and I make a selection to do 50%, and then I decide later on I want to do partial, which is only 25%, can I do that down the road? While your retirement is being adjudicated with OPM, you've got some wiggle room to make changes. Once they finalize it, which is why I think they probably put it there at reductions, you can't change it. The only way you can like take it out of there altogether or change it is if your spouse passed away and then you marry someone else, then you can make the adjustments to whatever you want it to be. But no, it pretty much is fixed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? Because then we can go to lunch. All right, so 1 hour lunch, and we'll get started at noon so we can go through the rest of the slides.